We're reaching out via Zoom to catch up with the CEO of Commonwealth Games Australia, Craig Phillips, who joins us on The Informer. Craig, you've taken the sunnies off, or the glasses. Things are looking a little bit better for not only the Commonwealth Games, Birmingham 2018, but also we're hearing that the Olympic Games, which has already been delayed, is going to go ahead, and that must fill you and others who love sport and love elite sport with a great deal more confidence, huh?
It does, George. I know the IOC and the Japanese authorities are working pretty hard to make sure the games happen, and we've obviously seen updates again recently on that. And locally, our colleagues at the Australian Olympic Committee and Paralympics Australia are also doing the same to make sure that they get the athletes there safely and in good shape to compete. So it does. I mean, we know a lot of athletes go Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games or Paralympic Games. So it's one fraternity really. And from our point of view, one of the, I guess, positives, if you can find them out of COVID, is that the delay of a year of the Olympic Games, if they proceed again later this year, is that it gives us a 12-month runway of opportunities to see athletes doing great things for Australia in the green and gold. So Olympics, Paralympics, Winter Games next year, and then Commonwealth Games. So it'll be an exciting 12 months of sport for anyone who loves watching Australian athletes compete on the world stage.
You're right, for the very first time, because of circumstances, we get a different audition for the Com Games, don't we?
We do, yeah. So our world has changed because of that. As I said, there is the positive of what it means for the sports enthusiast, and it's for the games, for the athletes as well. There are some athletes who may have thought that it was too far between Tokyo and Birmingham, but now with only a year, they may hang around and keep going. So we see that as a positive. But I guess from our point of view, it changes the nature of what we do. Normally, we would have had 18 months to 2-year runway between the Olympics and Paralympics to the Commonwealth Games. We don't have that now, so we've had to change our approach in terms of how we engage with our member sports and with athletes and gather information and all of that. So it's changed our approach as well, and we'll continue to change our approach. But again, it's stuff we can learn and maybe become more efficient from.
Our chef de mission, Petria Thomas, she leading the way and making sure everybody's understanding what's happening?
She is. She's been great. And the good thing about someone with her extensive background as an athlete and then working more recently in terms of administration of Commonwealth Games teams is that she understands the world of an athlete. Athletes like certainty, but they also, the best athletes and the ones who achieve are the ones who can become adaptable and flexible and deal with the circumstances. And that's the way she's leading our team, is actually bringing some of that approach of being adaptable. And in fact, we've had good discussions around what we call our team executive to say, well, if we can go to Birmingham being adaptable, being ready to change our plans because we need to, we'll put our athletes in the best possible place to have success. So it's very encouraging that we're not thumping the table and saying you can't change that. We're saying, well, okay, you need to change that, so we need to change and we move on and we get the best we can.
Craig Phillips, you remind me yet again of how important attitude is, especially when it comes to business. Organisational positivity helps enormously, but also for elite athletes. If you see the challenge ahead as just that, a challenge and not an obstacle, then as an elite athlete, you make the changes and you set a goal and you go for it, don't you? Yeah?
You do, George, and I can't claim to be an elite athlete. I've been around for a while now from a career point of view, and the ones who succeed are the ones who go, there is so much I can control about my environment and so much I can't. And I have to accept the ones I can't and find a way of actually overcoming what the challenges that may be put in front of me. So, we've got, as I said, we've taken that attitude with our team executive under Petria's leadership, and hopefully that will feed through to our member sports and ultimately down to the athlete level, that to succeed, you need to be adaptable.
One of the things that we do on The Informer is we tell stories. We make them as engaging as possible, and we also try and be as informative. Can we go back and use some of that experience that you've garnered over the years to reflect on how the Commonwealth Games have changed. I remember them, not personally, but I remember them as the Empire Games, which morphed into the Commonwealth Games. And they were an amazing opportunity for this collective, this wonderful Commonwealth of nations, to send their very best and brightest young talent and test one another at the various cities around the world. And they were fantastic, whether it was in Canada, whether it was in Britain, whether it was in Australia, in some of our great cities. And some of our greatest stories have come from either the Empire Games or the Commonwealth Games over the years. What did we learn from the Com Games, say 2018, that we can throw forward and help us to get Birmingham to be as successful?
Yeah, good question, George. The Commonwealth Games has been a games, and certainly in more recent years, has been prepared to adapt and change, and obviously, confront some of the challenges that come with this. I guess the tag of the empire. Move to the new Commonwealth, the modern Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a collective of 50 odd nations who are voluntarily part of the organisation. They don't have to be part of the Commonwealth. They choose to be.
Correct.
So that gives rise to the 72 nations that now compete at the Games, so nations and territories. So it is a fraternity by choice, and we have a shared heritage that goes back to the old British Empire. So I think that adaptability has been important for the Commonwealth. But things like, embracing more fully back in Manchester in 2002 to include events integrated for athletes with disabilities, so para-athletes, which has continued to develop. And on Gold Coast, we saw that probably exemplified better than any other previous Commonwealth Games, and we know Birmingham will take it a step further again. We had 8 sports on the Gold Coast for athletes for para events. We had 300 athletes from around the Commonwealth compete in those events. And, constantly since Gold Coast, people say that to me, isn't it great you included para-athletes? Well, para-athletes have been there now for a number of editions, but what the Gold Coast organisers did was really highlight the importance of those athletes and the full integration. They compete for the same medals, they live in the same village, they're part of the same team. So they are fully integrated into our games, and that continues for Birmingham. The other thing we're proud of the Gold Coast, it was the first major event anywhere in the world that had an equal number of events for men and women competing, medal events. So never been done before, first time on Gold Coast. That continues in Birmingham. Birmingham goes a step further, and in fact, there'll be more events for women than men in Birmingham. So there have been really important changes where we're tapping into social change that our movement speaks to. And the other important thing we did on the Gold Coast, which we're proud of, and again, it's being embraced around the Commonwealth, is our embracing of reconciliation. So again, Gold Coast, first Games to have a reconciliation action plan. We're looking at one for our own organisation now, but again, that talks to broader issues in the Commonwealth. The issues of the relationship with Indigenous people, the issue of relation with people who are descendants of slavery, for example. So we know the Commonwealth movement is really progressive in addressing these issues and keeping the movement relevant from that point of view.
And I must congratulate you also for the village. That village on the Gold Coast was remarkable, made even more special with the arrival of that light rail service, which changed the very dynamics of the city and how you got not only tourists and participants, but also the fans to move seamlessly. Is the same sort of thinking going ahead for Birmingham?
Yes, so certainly, what we've recognised as a movement, and we recognise it here in Australia, and this is why we like to host, is that we, working with governments, particularly state governments, we can actually look at ways of using the Games as a catalyst for development, infrastructure development, urban development in cities that is needed, but may normally be on the planning drawing board for 25 to 30 years. We get them accelerated and done in 7 years, leading to Games. So you're right, Gold Coast, there was the light rail extension, there was the development of this new health and knowledge precinct, which was the village, is now there as built to rent housing for people in the health sector. So, people working around the hospital, the education sector, people working around the university, so important development. Birmingham is the same. There's development going on around a light rail system for them in the city. They're developing a village which regrettably won't be available now for the games, but it will still be built. So some urban development in a depressed area of Birmingham to provide new housing, including affordable housing. So things that you may have to wait to have done normally get accelerated because of the games. And that's something we're really proud of, because they're the legacies that are left behind for communities.
100%. And there's the other added component that we sometimes gloss over, and that is the technology that you take with you and you advance, for example, whether it be cameras and how now you get to follow the race, to follow the marathons, to follow the cyclists, to follow the rowers and all of that in a way that we never imagined before, unless we were part of what World Series cricket, where we had the technicians at Channel 9 doing things that we didn't think were possible. We're way ahead of the game, aren't we?
We are, and I think that continues on, and certainly the recognition in sport that you can't rely on people to sit down in the lounge room, turn the television on anymore, and just watch one screen. People want to consume sport differently, so they want to not only see sport, but they want to be able to consume it through multiple screens. Whether it's looking at statistics, being embedded in with the performers, all those sort of things become important as an offering on how to make people feel much more part of the event. So that they are important developments.
And there's the social media, and the social media will be another thing, won't it?
Well, it is for sure, and certainly that social media allows that direct engagement between the fan and the athlete. Obviously, there's management around that sometimes, but certainly again, it brings people into the games, and it shows a new way how people can interact. So you don't have to necessarily come into a stadium to interact with the games. You can actually do that through social media consumption as well.
So before I let you go, how close are we to on schedule, and how far away are we from saying we're good to go?
Still away, but that's okay. We're not getting nervous, because normally we wouldn't be. So much of what we do, George, relies on the tracking of the organising committee. So some of their key milestone dates drive a lot of our planning. So from that point of view, we're still some way away, but that's okay. And also too, from our point of view, we come back to a point I made earlier. We are obviously respectful of the fact that right now it's Olympic time and Paralympic time. We really ramp up. So come October this year, once those two games are out of the way, you'll start to see it essentially become what we're calling Commonwealth Games time. So that's when we'll really increase our planning, our interaction with our member sports, with athletes, with the public, around what we're doing. So we're tracking pretty well. The big ticket items we're starting to knock off. While I can't reveal too much, we're getting very close around securing our uniform supplier, which is an important milestone for us. We're in discussions around potential airline deals, all of that. So all those big items that we need to get the teams there safely to compete well are well in the mix, and we're starting the conversation with our sport now around things like selection timetables and all that. So I think we're tracking pretty well, though we have to be adaptable, because we know the organising committee with the impact of COVID may have to vary their plans along the way, so we will have to do the same.
How big is the Australian team likely to be? Do you have a number?
Yeah, we do. So we're forecasting based on qualification systems and quota systems and that apply to us, that our athlete number will be somewhere in the order of 410 to 420, maybe 425 athletes, which is a significant sized team. A little bit lower than Gold Coast. Gold Coast were up around the 470 mark, 480 mark. But still a significant team, and we'll be across all of the Commonwealth Games sports and disciplines. We know that. So we're excited about that. So we'll probably be the second largest team of the Games. We think the English team as home team will be larger than us, but after them we'll be next.
Let me test you. How we've got a fantastic crop of young basketballers making inroads in the NBA in America. Are we likely to see an astoundingly talented boomer team making a real name for itself, do you think, in Birmingham, following what it does in Japan?
It would be great to say that, but the thing for us is that basketball is on the program for Birmingham, but it's actually the 3x3 version. So it's the street basketball, which is great, really exciting. So
we've got some really canny players.
Yeah, so whether we had any crossover or not, I don't know. But it's certainly it's developing into a different sort of game and a different sort of player for that game, and also importantly, not only 3x3 able body, but 3x3 wheelchair as well.
Fantastic.
So that's where we think we'll get some of the crossover from the Paralympic team more so probably than the Olympic team.
Craig Phillips, more power to you. We trust the transition from the Olympics to the Commonwealth Games Birmingham is seamless. We wish you every success, and we hope we get, as we get closer, we can have another chat and see if we're on the money.
My pleasure, George, anytime.
Thank you so very much. Craig Phillips joining us, the CEO of Commonwealth Games Australia.